which most people are okay with. Expectation setting. This is mostly for when you're setting up calls, make sure to have an agenda. And when you're inside the calls, you make sure that everybody knows what needs to be achieved, how to measure what needs to be achieved, and at the end, what would happen if what you wanted achieved was indeed achieved, right? And do this over and over for each call. Basically, sale is just a step of actions that you take from one to the other. Okay, I would end this here. This page is basically how to reach out to me. And I also wanted to include the names of a few people who have influenced how I sell and how I do lead generation. Amazing people. I highly recommend you research them if you don't know them already. I will stop here, and I would love to get into more of the conversation style.
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily Deepak, who asked a very pertinent question, is here, so I will let him ask the question. Deepak, if you pick up the mic, I will let you in, and I will let you ask your question which you had sent me when you signed up, or if you prefer, I can read it out for you. Okay, while we wait for him, let's pick up this question, which came from Cynthia Smullyman. Okay, and she asked that getting a sales role in engineering, where I was a technical expert, haven't worked in a formal position for a while, what do I need to pay attention to, and how do I fill in any gaps?
Amazing question, and an important one. My take on that is that when you are moving from technology to sales, the biggest shift that you're making is from a product mindset to a people process mindset. So the only suggestion that I would have is to sort of take a step back from your product knowledge and technology knowledge and start to learn things about human psychology and books on sales, books on buying processes, and really start to enjoy these conversations that you're having with people without thinking about if or how something is even possible. And at least when you're in the discovery phase, you don't want to care about how, right? You want to care about why, what, who. And when you are going to present, that is when you might want to bring in some of the technology aspect of what can't be done or what can be done differently. And of course, if something can be done straightforward, you have it in the back. So my suggestion, learn to cut off from the product and get into those human conversations. I mean, everybody is just human beings. Talk to people like you talk to a friend, like an equal, and it's very normal. There's nothing sophisticated about sales. You just try to understand the buying process, and you work with people. You don't work at them; you work with them. You'll be good. Great question.
So, I will just read out Deepak's question as well. I mean, maybe he's not able to connect.
I'm curious what your thoughts on Cynthia's question is.
Well, I mean, you pretty much covered the ground. I think engineering is, to a great extent, inside-looking, product-facing mindset. There is no two ways about it. And I think the role which sort of bridges that gap is what we call a product manager, who actually tries to interface the outside with the inside. Right. But when you are engineering, you're coding, and she doesn't mention what kind of engineering she was doing. So I don't want to assume that she was doing coding. She may be designing bridges, for all I know. But the point is that the shift is about the customer and the outcome the customer is looking for. It is not about what we have on offer,
Correct.
but what the customer is looking for, and can we sort of chip in into that process. It is not about fitting ourselves in there, but do we really have something for them? I know
Correct.
it sounds a little convoluted, but
No, and the other question that is that who are you? Are you a salesperson or are you a technology person? Or and if you really want to make the transition, do you want to transition with a sort of a break in the middle? So there's a position called pre-sales, where or a solutions consultant, where you invite people who are good at talking to people, good at understanding issues, and they understand the product and the solution space really well. They adapt it to the language of the customer, the prospect, and they present it that way. So, if you want to be a salesperson in the future for sure, do you want to get there right away, or do you want to go through this process, or maybe if you start to work as a pre-sales consultant or a solutions consultant for a year or two, maybe you start loving that job. Maybe that's what you want to do because you have your background helps and also what you want to do. You're able to do in that role.
the other thing I want to add, actually, most of the time, uh, the sales people who come in, especially in the entry level, they do not necessarily come with technical expertise or technical depth of knowledge. I think
Right.
if you have worked in engineering and you're moving into sales, I think you covered it. Pre-sales is a great place to start. Your knowledge level of, or the depth of knowledge that you have in your area of expertise, if you're selling the same expertise, or products coming out of that expertise to the
Hmm.
market, then you are an extremely valuable person. uh, Understanding the customer, which is what, like Raj said, that it's a question of understanding psychology. I mean, it's like how
Yeah.
you deal with anybody else. So as long as you understand what this person is looking for, and that's what you're trying to figure out, because remember, it's the outcome, it's not what they're buying. They're not buying a bridge, they're buying the ability to go from this point to that point. The bridge is
Correct.
incidental, right? So you're not selling a bridge. So as long as you understand what outcome the customer is looking for, I think that's where we all need to reach first. Understand the customer's need or the definition of the outcome, and then see whether we have what it takes to deliver that.
Yeah,
So
and people are very sharp. I mean,
yeah,
if you don't have exactly what they're looking for, but you can solve the larger problem, they'll still listen to you. I mean, if you
yeah,
can give them an option which is more robust or cheaper or whatever, better, right?
yeah,
In and gets the job done. Yeah,
yeah,
right. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Let me take you to Deepak's question, which was a little more elaborate in its scope. So you will
mhm.
enjoy talking about it. Uh, what are the important points to consider, including cultural, in the entire sales life cycle, lead gen to closure and customer success, while interacting with different international customers, North America, Europe, Middle East, in terms of B2B SaaS? So the industry vertical is B2B SaaS. We are talking of what are all the important points to consider with cultural nuances in
Hmm.
these markets. So North America, Europe, Middle East, B2B SaaS, and entire life cycle. So whatever you want to cover, Raj, on that.
This is a tough one. So
We
yeah,
could do one whole session on
we could
this.
do one whole session. So the way it works culturally is US is a melting point. You don't have to do any preparation. You have something that they want. You can help them with do something, do it faster, cheaper, better. They're open, and that's why they are where they are as as a country. And UAE, for example, you would need people to go there, meet in person. So I always recommend that companies have a local partner if you can't hire somebody, there to begin with. But usually, companies can hire a partner. By hire, I mean build a partnership over a period of time with people that are aligned either with the kind of software that they're selling or just selling to their target companies, right? It doesn't even have to be a software. It could be something else, but if they are going and having relationships with the sort of people that they want to sell to, it could still make a good partner. Europe is slower, and they also have to have a bunch of face to face. They like I mean, they take a lot of time. So if something gets done in one meeting in the US, here it will take 5 meetings. That's been my experience with Europe in general. And English works, but begin with, I mean, even before we get into these, I would definitely have different campaigns for each of these different countries. I'll not run the same campaign, same one campaign throughout the world. I always have one for uh, Europe, especially in English speaking Europe. I'll have one for US. I'll have one for maybe US and Canada put together, one for UAE, and a separate one for India. In India, I've seen there's a bunch of other cultural issues. The issues are that people like taking meetings, so you'll get a lot more people who are ready to talk, and they'll talk, but it won't go anywhere. And secondly, it would a lot of times they would negotiate you on price. They'll get to cost and so on and so forth. So it's very difficult to do value-based selling in India. So, I mean, if you can avoid India, you can do that. But otherwise, there are companies who started selling in India and Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore, Southeast Asia specifically, and then went out. You could do that, but I don't know too many companies that have done really well doing that as against companies that started selling in the US and then expanded their footprint to the rest of the world. So that's my take. It's different. Get into conversations. You'll know it's amazing fun. Uh, yeah, I've had some amazing experiences. Back in 2007, 8, I used to run a team of 20 people at this supply chain company, and sometimes I used to do 20-hour shifts. I start my day with somebody in New Zealand and with somebody in Finland. So yeah, it's amazing if you can do it, go for it.
The only other thing I would just add to this discussion is uh, in Europe. What I have seen as I'm speaking with people, I think having the data in specific European countries will become a requirement. So you really can't say that my servers are on AWS and I'm hosted in America and I want to sell in Finland. That may be a challenge, and I increasingly hear this, that where is your data hosted? And post Brexit, even earlier UK was okay, but now post Brexit, the trend that I see, and I'm not saying it is all pervasive and it's with everybody and so on and so forth, but I increasingly see this, that if somebody is in Norway or in Germany or in France, they will say that we would want our data to be hosted in our country. And especially as you move up the chain, so still smaller deals may not have this as a showstopper, so to say. But this requirement, as you move up and you start trying to sell to larger organizations and not even SMB, the medium-sized companies, I'll not say small, but medium-sized and definitely enterprise, they 100% they will tell you that we want the data to be hosted here. So that is something that you need to be prepared. I mean, it's not really cultural, so to say, but this is something you need to keep in mind and figure out. And there are a lot of local very robust service providers in most of these countries. So they're not AWS dependent at all. So I mean, that's one of the things that you need to keep in mind.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is I will move on with my session, which I now have a tough job to do after following Raj's session. I think I'm underprepared, but I'll go for it. Uh, and if you have questions, feel free to ask. And yeah, so can you see my screen? Okay, so this is where we are. I mean, this is the first slide. You're already been through Raj's session. Uh, I think you are hopefully taking back some learnings from there. Uh, Raj spoke about three parts of the selling process. I will add one more between lead and close, and that is the conversation piece. Uh, Identifying of the lead to close, a lot of things happen between multiple people, multiple stakeholders. That's where my interest lies. Uh, but uh, but it is also the most difficult thing after you have identified somebody as a lead. Um, Basically, what you see as a challenge in terms of conversion, which according to Forrester is as low as 1.8, some people say it's around 5. So let's take a range between 1.8 to say 7 or 8%. It's still abysmally low. I mean, any other business, any other discipline, if we said we have 8% success rate, we would have they would have said, "Oh my God! I mean, you guys are you must be quite crappy at what you do." But we accept it as as the industry. We say this is fine. Um, as response rates go down, as engagement goes down, our response is do more of the same thing. So you are making calls, you are not getting enough lifts. Let's put a robocaller. Instead of 100 dials, let's make 500 dials. That has been our typical approach. So we have been sort of attacking the symptoms and not the disease. And part of what I am really interested in is figuring out what is the disease. 5% conversion rate is uh, about the disease, but it's manifesting itself as a low conversion rate. uh, we have to sort of step back and potentially rethink why we are where we are, because we are not changing our our activities. I mean, it's like saying you can't repeat the same thing and expect a different result. That apparently is a sign of insanity. So, so I have a feeling we are going through this mass insanity in sales. We need to think about that. Closing is not the problem. So when we come to conversion, we say, oh, we are not able to close. Closing is not the problem. Like so many of the things Raj touched upon, I sincerely believe starting is the problem. Because we are starting with the wrong guy. You cannot just walk up to a guy who is trying to take a bus or to trying to take a subway and say, hey, will you buy this new shiny Tesla? Doesn't make sense. We are starting at the wrong place with the wrong people, and which is why we are not converting. It's understandable. We are also missing the social cues. Buyers are not wanting to engage, which is why they're not lifting the phone, which is why they're not responding to mail, which is why they are not wanting face to face meetings. And I mean, one can debate, and obviously nothing is 100%. There are great guys out there who swear by cold calling, who swear by cold mailing, and they may be right. But if you step back and look at the larger industry, look at what's happening with you, look at what's happening with most people, you will see they are the exceptions,
Yep.
right? So
Where's the
we cannot
95%?
exactly, right? So that is the problem, that we are not aligning with our prospects, and that's something we need to remember. We have to understand that the buyer's journey is not ida, like you said, it's not banned. That's not what the buyer is thinking. The buyer is trying to fix a problem. It can be a supply chain issue, it can be a manufacturing issue, it can be any number of issues which they're trying to solve. And remember, Raj mentioned Sharon Drew Morgan, and I happen to have the opportunity to speak to her on my show, and she talks about a 13-step process of a buyer. Now there are various versions of this. That's not the only version. But the point across all these is that the vendor comes in at the last quarter of the journey. The vendor doesn't surface. Nobody cares about the vendor till the last quarter of that journey. And if you look at Gartner, the buying decision process, that the spaghetti bowl is, that infographics that they put out a few years back, you'll see the same thing. It's not a linear process by no stretch. It is extremely messy, extremely back and forth, and unless we align with that, we'll keep driving for moving from one step to the other, and this step's defined by us. Okay, so we need to be thinking about this, and one of the things we want to achieve in these sessions is to have an open debate. I'm happy to engage with the community to come to a conclusion, because end of the day we all want to solve the 5% conversion problem. We want that outcome to change. Let's make no mistake. How can we do that? Can we do that with more? Can we do that with less? There are n number of ideas in the ecosystem. Different practitioners have different formulas, but nothing will take it away from the fact that you need to align with the buyer, no matter what you are doing. If you cannot align with the buyer, that sale is not happening. Okay. The other major indicator that is here available is that, again, I'll quote the same Gartner report. The buyers are in the entire buying cycle. The buyers are spending less than 17% of their entire time with vendors, with all vendors. So typically, if there is a purchase worth anything around 50 or 100, even 50 or $100,000, they're not talking only to you or to me. They're talking to 5 different people. And this 17% of the time is divided between these 5 or 6 vendors they're engaging with, which means each vendor gets 2% of the entire time that the buyer will devote in the buying cycle. That's your window. That's it. Take it or leave it. I want to talk a bit about LinkedIn. We are live on LinkedIn today. I think our Facebook live failed. Technical challenges, but YouTube is live. Anyway, LinkedIn has 700 million professionals. 700 million. It's half of India's population. Registered professionals, 700 million. Why? It provides an alternate mind space to engage with peers, away from the inbox. Don't miss this last part. Away from the inbox. Otherwise, we would have been writing mails to each other all day. We need alternate spaces to do alternate things. That's how our mind works. We don't go to a market expecting a musical. We don't go to the airport expecting a train. You see, we do things with a specific mindset. When we are traveling, we have a different mindset. When we are sitting at the hospital trying to get some checkups done, our mindset is different. LinkedIn provided that alternate space. If you remember, LinkedIn, when they came, LinkedIn was a hiring platform. You went and put up your profile, companies came and put their profiles, headhunters were coming there on a regular basis, but not the people whose profiles were there, because you change a job once in 2 years or 3 years, you only come back then. So LinkedIn wanted to solve that problem. So they had this space where you could put up your profile and you could get hired. So you put your profile to get hired. That was the source of revenue for LinkedIn. LinkedIn figured that this is not working because people are only coming once in 2 years. So how do we engage people? So they said, let's shift this to what's really happening out there in the other social networks, and let's have a lot of user generated content. And how they started that, how they seeded that, was that Reid Hoffman, being who he was, reached out to folks like Bill Gates and said, hey, guys, we'll have 100 friends who are all very well known and we'll all post. So that's how it started. 100 friends of Reid Hoffman. I mean, that 100 number may not be correct. It could be 200, it could be 50. But that's the kind of people, very well known, people whom these people who have registered on the site to get a job would be willing to look at. They started posting, and that started a cascading effect and brought us to where it is today. Right? However, what that did was it created a lot of content. Now LinkedIn thought, how do we monetize this? So their answer was Sales Navigator. They sort of unleashed a monster and made LinkedIn into a pitching platform, which is what you see today. You get literally hundreds of unsolicited pitches coming at you every day. And it is reducing the engagement quotient, the peer-to-peer exchange of ideas, the whole intellectual framework that I'm doing something better than doing Facebook. That is sort of getting challenged. And people are slowly seeing the transformation of LinkedIn into the over-assaulted inbox. We believe that we need to provide a safe haven for your buyer to consider your value prop against your competitors. We need to seriously think about it. How can we? I mean, LinkedIn is a great example of how it can be done. But the way it turned out, you came for the peer discussion, you came for the engagement, you came for the exchange of ideas, but now you have suddenly become target for pitches. That was not the mindset with which you signed up for LinkedIn. That's not the mindset with which most people signed up for LinkedIn. And there is a conflict there. And that conflict is coming to the fore. More and more people are talking about it. I don't know what is going to go. I have no prediction. I mean, maybe it will get corrected, maybe it will not. I don't know. But what really comes through is, if you want the dialogue between buyers and sellers to continue in a healthy manner, through exchanges of ideas, of innovation, of challenges, then we have to create a space for that. And when that space doesn't exist today, but if you want to start the engagement, I would strongly recommend that think of how to provide that safe space where the buyer can come and engage with you the way and when he wants. if you can create that space, that would change dramatically the number of conversations and value conversations that you will have from the leads that you generate. There is a forest framework. I think I will skip that. uh, uh, I because basically that's the framework that I believe will help solve a part of the problem, if not all of it. You have to start by giving, by sharing, not by asking for a meeting. You have to create a, a environment where the prospect is going to share inside information with you. If you cannot build that confidence, this is not going to move forward. You need to support the process that the buyer will have internally, and you need to solve the customer's challenge, which is that outcome we spoke about earlier. And it can be resolve the challenge or co-solve the challenge. It's not dependent purely on you. It is about providing the tools and the expertise, but working with your prospect. Because make no mistake, this is business. We are not talking of going to a doctor. So people who use sales analogy with medicine, it's completely nuts. It's completely nuts. I mean, this is not that. When I am building one more manufacturing plant, and I run a plant which maybe produces 300,000 motorbikes, and I want one more plant, or I'm putting a plant for electric bike. I come with a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of understanding of what's going on. I have a lot of understanding of what's wrong and where the gaps are. So to assume that you can come in and coach me will be a bit much. But you need to be able to bring in and work with your prospect to solve, resolve, co-solve the problem. So that's the framework. Maybe another day we can go into that in detail. Uh, I I am pretty much done. So to sum up, uh, we need to think of the buyer first. We need to give a safe haven to the buyer to engage with us, and we need to uh, stop ambushing them. We need to stop all the corrosive stuff that we do. There are a lot of people who talk about, oh, don't let the buyer get the upper hand. I don't even understand these discussions. What is this? Is this a war? What is this? We are children?
Or a
What?
sport where one has to lose.
Exactly. I mean, what really is this? I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. Uh, I don't know. Anyway, so long story short, I think for changing the closure, we need to have meaningful conversations with appropriate leads. It starts with the leads, it continues with the conversation, and if we do these two pieces right, our conversion rates will double, treble, or go more. But these two pieces have to be fixed first. That's it.
Fantastic.
Any questions? I don't see any questions, new questions yet. Any questions that I can answer? Raj, do you have any questions on what I just said? Any gaps do you see in my thoughts?
Sorry? What did
I
you say?
said, do you have any questions about or observations about what I just said?
No, I totally agree. I love this conversation. This is something that even if I remember correctly, even with my conversations with Sharon Drew Morgan, so this was one of the things where even she would raise her hand saying, when you ask the question, what happens when the buyer does not uh, come back with next steps? What happens? What do you do? She would say, and most people would say, I don't know, right? Um, and with PitchLink, I think you do know. Um, what to do. You basically provide a safe space, not just to stand apart from everyone else that is not doing that, but also you genuinely provide a place where they could have all the information that they need at a single place, because otherwise, there's stuff on LinkedIn, there's stuff on email, there's stuff
Yeah.
on Drive, there's stuff on links, and who knows where the links are. There's stuff on WhatsApp. Here you have everything on a single platform. It's cataloged, categorized, and you invite people based on where you are. So do you want to invite internal teams? Invite internal teams. Do you want to talk to the sales guy? Are you ready? Right? Invite them. Do you want, imagine, everybody knows DocSend. So DocSend lets the sales guy know how much time a buyer has spent on a particular page. What if you said, I don't want to know, right? I trust that when the buyer is ready, they'll let me in. Because, when you go and tell people that I see that you saw my page and this is what you did, blah, blah, you're starting the conversation with distrust. You're saying that you did not give me permission to do that, but I did that anyway, and now I'm going to use that in the sales process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What if you could say you give them a space and they could choose to invite you to whatever they're doing. Otherwise, by default, it's just hidden. It's for them, right?
Yeah.
For a change, start with the buyer and see what the difference is. And my goal is basically just create leads that have a potential to close. And I think your piece comes into the picture really well, going from a lead to an actual closure. And by closure, I just mean being able to pitch what you've learned. Lead generation and this conversation is all about learning the need so that you can pitch what to pitch, right? No more, no less.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think let's bring this session to a close. Uh, customer is to, present a vote of thanks. I want to thank Raj for sharing his thoughts and all of you for making it to this session. There are quite a few on LinkedIn, few on YouTube. We intend to do 2 such every month. The next one is on 8th of March, and I will send you a mail with details. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Pleasure
Thank you.
being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.